The Raiders look like the only team across the National Football League that'll have a true quarterback competition in training camp. So who's the leader in the clubhouse? We'll talk about that plus a whole lot more coming up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 14th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show is growing and growing and growing each and every day. That's because of you and my man Ari. Ari does a great job making sure we're on YouTube, we're looking good, we're sounding good, gets us up in a timely fashion, and we definitely appreciate him and shout him out. Check him out on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts, as many as I can get to, will come up in segment number 3. I have to say this every once in a while. Please don't take it personal if your call or text does not get on the show. It's never anything personal. I try to get as many in as possible. Sometimes I'm able to get to a lot of them, sometimes not as many, depending on the length of the calls. I try to get some that have different subjects, so it's not all the same call about the same thing. Sometimes that's a little difficult to do. Try to mix it up a little bit, and sometimes they just get lost in the shuffle. So, I saw some people on Twitter upset that their calls hadn't got on in a couple shows. I apologize. Again, it's never anything personal. I try my very, very best to get as many calls in as possible and as many variety of people on as possible as well. So we'll do it again. We'll attempt it again coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 2, we'll talk about that quarterback competition between Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, the real true competition around the National Football League. There's teams that'll say there's a quarterback competition like Washington, right? Jaden Daniels, he's got to earn the job. He's going to earn the job. Caleb Williams has already been announced as the Bears' head starting quarterback for the season. We already knew that as well. The Patriots, they probably want Drake May to get into the action as soon as possible, right? I mean, that's going to be a competition, but not really, right? In Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, do we really think that that's a big-time competition? Nah, not really, right? So the Raiders, I look at them as a team that truly has the competition. So we'll talk about O'Connell. We'll talk about Minshew. We'll hear from head coach Antonio Pierce. Also, Mark Ross from the NFL Network. He was a former GM of the New York Football Giants. He has his thoughts on who should start for the Silver and Black, so you hear from him as well. And we'll kind of compare and contrast Gardner Minshew and Aidan O'Connell. That'll be all in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes, a little nuggets. Some players were made official as far as signing with the Silver and Black, and some scouts were made official as well, changing their jobs as well. That's all coming up here in segment number 1. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So off top, how about we start with the second-round pick out of Oregon, Jackson Powers Johnson. He became official on Monday, and now the Raiders' whole 2024 draft class is signed. All 8 players signed, sealed, and delivered. Powers Johnson, 6'3", 320-pound offensive lineman out of Oregon. He was taken 44th overall in the 2024 NFL Draft, started 27 games over his career, became the first Pac-12 player in history to win the Remington Trophy given to the best center in college football. Of course, the Raiders are going to start him out at guard. Will it be left guard? Will it be right guard? He got the snaps at left guard on Friday when we were at rookie mini camp. And, I think that would be good if he could slide in that spot, because you'd have a very seasoned veteran in Colton Miller. Then you'd have a rookie. Then you'd have a veteran in Andre James. Then you'd have a veteran in Dylan Parham as well, and potentially a rookie at that right tackle spot. We don't know who's going to get that. And even if it's a guy like Thayer Munford who earns that, he hasn't had a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of starts under his belt. So the whole time he's been in the league, he's kind of been a guy that's when needed, throw him into the game. And of course, he got a few starts last season when Colton Miller was out and injured. So there you go. Powers Johnson signed, sealed, and delivered. Here's a cool note on him. Did not allow a sack over 3 seasons with the Ducks and led all FBS centers with a 90.6 passing blocking grade from Pro Football Focus. He was also named a first-team All-American by the Associated Press in his junior year. How about Andrews Pete? That's another guy that we knew was signing with the Raiders, but he became official on Monday as well. He was with the Saints the last 9 seasons. He was originally a first-round pick, 13th overall by the Saints back in 2015, and has appeared in 111 career games with 102 starts, was named to the Pro Bowl 3 times. He stands 6'7". He's 316 pounds, played in 16 games in 2023 with 12 starts, 1 at left guard and 11 at left tackle. So he's clearly got some versatility. He's better at the tackle position. Who knows where he's going to end up being? Is he going to be a starter? Is he going to be depth? Don't know. But he signed, sealed, and delivered as well. Again, a guy that we knew was signing with the Raiders per a physical, but everything became official on Monday. Also have a couple nuggets here about some scouts from Tristan Kuhn on Twitter, and I like to go ahead and pass these along. Sometimes he does a really good job passing along information, so whenever I see it, I like to bring it to the table. Kyrell Michael has been hired by the Raiders full-time as a player personnel assistant after serving with the team as part of the Nunn-Wooten Scouting Fellowship last offseason. And if you don't remember what the Nunn-Wooten Scouting Fellowship was, it was created by the NFL in January 2015, exposes interested and qualified candidates to a career in professional scouting. The program will give participants a unique glimpse into player personnel by introducing them to various areas related to college and pro scouting within the club. He earned a degree in sports and entertainment management from the University of South Carolina back in 23. During college, he served as a student player personnel assistant for the Gamecocks football program from 22 to 23, and previously worked as the assistant head coach, offensive coordinator for the school's football team from 2020 to 2021. So that's a little bit about Kyrell Michael, who, again, has been hired by the Raiders as a full-time player personnel assistant. Also, the Raiders promoted Curtis Knox from a player personnel assistant to an area scout. So you can see the little chain of events here. Kyrell Michael goes to that player personnel assistant, and Curtis Knox goes from a player personnel assistant to an area scout position. Curtis Knox enters his first season as an area scout with the Raiders after 2 seasons as a player personnel assistant. Prior to his time with the Silver and Black, he spent 3 years as a scouting assistant for the NFL Combine and National Football Scouting. Also worked in player personnel for the Colts and Ohio State. Prior to working in football, Curtis worked in the front office for the WNBA Dallas Wings during their inaugural and sophomore season. So that's a little bit there about Curtis Knox. Couple little nuggets, nothing that's going to be game-changing, and, man, all of a sudden that's going to put the Raiders in the Super Bowl. Not saying any of that, but just thought I'd pass that along because I thought that was pretty interesting. The Raiders, moving some guys up, moving some guys around within the organization. Coming up in segment number 2, we're going to talk all things Raiders quarterback and who should be the leader in the clubhouse for that starting job, Aidan O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. It all comes up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor, which is Gametime. And I'm sure that everyone has always had an issue or had a frustrating time or frustrating experience with trying to buy tickets, right? Maybe you need some tickets last minute because you have some friends coming in town. Or maybe you just decided last minute that you want to go to the game. Like my guy, Vegas Jess, he always says, I'm not going to the game, I'm not going to the game, I'm not going to the game. And then all of a sudden he hits me, hey, man, I'm in the game. So he always gets killer last-minute deals, great last-minute deals, right? You can do that as well with Gametime. They have all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. They have the priority last-minute deals. I've talked about that. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever the case may be. Flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat view, so you can actually see the view from your seats before you buy it, so you know exactly what you're getting when you arrive. The lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. They got the purchases are covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about the quarterbacks that are in the mix, right? There's been a lot of quarterback conversation here on the podcast. There's been a lot of quarterback conversation when it comes to Raider Nation. It's quarterback conversation nationally, on radio, podcast, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of quarterback conversation about what the Raiders didn't get. Well, we need to also talk about what the Raiders do have, and I have no problem with that. I've been saying it for a long time. If there was a game on Sunday and Aidan O'Connell had to start, no problem. If Gardner Minshew had to start, no problem. But it's truly going to be a competition. I know training camp's not for a little ways away. You know, obviously it'll be here before you know it. They'll be in Costa Mesa and they'll be out there battling it out. But I do believe that this is going to be a true, real deal competition, one not like any other across the league. Like I look around the league and I don't see a real competition at the quarterback spot that's like this one, Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. So on Friday, and I played a little bit of this sound on Monday's show here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, AP speaking with the media, he was asked about the quarterback competition and how comfortable he is with the guys that are in the room. And then there's a follow-up as well. Just all things, quarterbacks from Antonio Pierce. Here he is. Check it out.
You made it pretty clear all along that no matter who you brought in here at quarterback, the job was basically going to go through Aidan. How comfortable are you with that quarterback room and excited to see how this thing all plays out?
I'm excited. I mean, what Aidan did the last 4 games and what he's done this offseason, changing his body, his work ethic, being here every day, blocking out the outside noise, not worried about anything. I'm excited. And then you bring Gardner in here and then listen, you talk about personality. I know you guys interviewed him. It's great. It's great for our building. It's great for our quarterback room. And if you got competition in the quarterback room, what does every other room look at? Looking at those 2 guys. Anthony Brown's done a heck of a job as well. So what I see is guys getting out there early. Aidan is already kind of taking the bull by the horn, and he's leading the way, and Minshew's right there doing as well. 2 guys that's played, and you saw them play against each other last year, and they went neck to neck. But I'm really excited to see what happens. I think it's going to be a process. We're going to stick to the process. But as I said before, Aidan's earned the right to go out there and get the first snap. Aidan is mentally tough. I said this last year. I said Aidan has a certain thing mentally where he blocks out outside noise. He doesn't worry about it. I mean, I'm sure he reads like we all do. But when he comes to work, he's focused, he's prepared, he studies, he puts the time in. There's been conversations that we've had that I've seen him grow in this short period of time in the offseason. I'm really excited to see Aidan as we go through OTAs, mini camps, and training camps.
So there it is. Antonio Pierce has been, sounds like team Aidan O'Connell since he took over, right? November 1st, he named Aidan O'Connell the starter and stuck with him the whole way through. And you heard what he had to say right there specifically about O'Connell, but also likes what Minshew brings to the table, and he's excited and looking forward to the competition. And I do think that Minshew is a true Raider. I feel like he has Raider, characteristics, right? I mean, he's obviously a quirky dude. He's got a different personality and everything, but I definitely believe he fits in really well with what the Raiders want to do. So who should have the upper hand when it comes to the quarterback job with the Raiders? Aidan O'Connell, who rocked the last 9 weeks of the season, started the last 9 games for Antonio Pierce, or Gardner Minshew, the guy that they gave $15 million fully guaranteed for the next couple seasons? Who should have the upper hand? Here's former Giants GM Mark Ross, who is on NFL Network as a part of NFL Network and is talking about the quarterback position in Las Vegas with the Raiders.
Let's go to the Raiders because there's no rookie here. It's Minshew against O'Connell. Should they see how the second-year guy develops or just roll with the vet?
Let's put Minshew in there. Look, Minshew has shown, Gardner Minshew at stops in Jacksonville and even last year with the Colts, is that the guy can produce and he can win. Now, is he good enough to compete with Patrick Mahomes and the likes? No, but he can win some games for my man Antonio Pierce, a captain on our 2007 Giants Super Bowl team. He knows what's up. He's going to put him in there. They drafted Brock Bowers to have another tight end with Myers that they drafted out of Notre Dame the year before. And then Gardner Minshew played his best with the 2 tight end set. So the Raiders brain trust kind of knew that, like, let's surround him with what he does best. Quick passing game, get it out there. He's going to produce. So if the Raiders want to compete, I think Gardner Minshew is the man for the job because he's shown that he can compete. And what they did last year with the Colts was really amazing, right in it to the end. And that was big part of it because of Gardner, Patrick.
So there you go. You hear Mark Ross talk about Gardner Minshew, and I feel like, and maybe it's just me, I feel like a lot of the outside world, and when I say outside, I mean not people that are really close to the Raiders, and maybe there are guys that are really close to the Raiders that believe Gardner Minshew is going to be the starting quarterback, but I feel like that's the narrative from guys that are observing the team from a distance, that, oh yeah, Gardner Minshew is going to be the quarterback, no doubt. Just basically based off of, 1, he's got experience, and 2, the guaranteed money that the Raiders gave him. But I really don't buy that, right? I had this conversation on my radio show on Monday and had a really good discussion, a lot of great feedback I had on it. And so it was really split, right? I'm in Aidan O'Connell's corner where I think that he's going to be the guy that's going to be the starting quarterback. You heard what AP had to say. He's earned the right to get the first snap. And some took it as, yeah, he's going to get the first snap, and then Gardner Minshew is going to take over. I think it's really Aidan O'Connell's job to lose. I really do. And I'm comfortable with that. Again, I want to make that so clear because so many times my words get twisted up and people think I'm sleeping on O'Connell or I don't like him or whatever. I don't. That's not the case. I'm very comfortable with him starting if that's where the direction that they go, and I actually believe that that's going to be the direction that they do go. So, but you heard what Mark Ross had to say about Gardner Minshew. So just looking at some of the numbers, Aidan O'Connell started 10 games in 2023. You can almost throw out that first game against the Chargers. I thought he got in there way too early. He shouldn't have been playing that early in the season. Not to mention he didn't have a chance to go and play multiple games. He played one game and then had to sit down, and that's why I did not want him to start that game against the Chargers, and we saw what happened. He got sacked 7 times. A lot of that was on Josh McDaniels for setting him up for failure. The offensive line wasn't protecting very well, obviously. They didn't chip on Khalil Mack. There was a lot that went wrong in that game where O'Connell really never had a chance. But he started 10 games, 9 starts after November 1st. He threw for 2,218 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks, 62.1 percentage, right? Completion percentage. But none of those picks were in the last, handful of games. 3 or 4 games? He did a really good job of not turning the ball over. So he clearly got better as the season went along and he got more comfortable. And you've heard what AP had to say at the top where, he's been working out. He's been working on his body. He's been at the facility, right? I mean, it's a different day and time. Last year, I said, hey, if the guy gets into the game, something went terribly wrong with the Raiders. Well, something went terribly wrong with the Raiders, right? I mean, their quarterback, Jimmy G, got injured early, right? They had to make a decision on who to put in. Their head coach ended up getting fired. They had a play caller that had never called plays before, had a head coach that had never been a head coach before. Now, obviously, AP earned the head coaching job, but Hardegree wasn't a play caller, and a lot of that showed. So, really, O'Connell battled through a lot. So you got to give him credit for that. So the numbers, that's his numbers. They are what they are. They're not fantastic, but again, a rookie, and he had a lot that he was dealing with. Gardner Minshew, on the other hand, started 13 games in 2023, taking over for Anthony Richardson, who was out for the majority of the season, obviously. Threw for 3,305 yards, only had 15 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, 62.2% completion percentage, and he's 62.6 for his career. So it's kind of who he is. You kind of know who Gardner Minshew is already. And again, another reason I think Aidan O'Connell is going to end up getting the start and winning the starting job is what I just said. We know who Gardner Minshew is. We know exactly, and I'm not taking anything from him. We know that that's pretty much what his ceiling is going to be. Give you a little bit about over 3,000 yards, give you, 15 touchdowns, 62 point something, completion percentage. That's who he's going to be. We don't know what the ceiling for Aidan O'Connell is yet. Do I think he's some, superstar guy that's going to be an elite quarterback? No, but we don't know what the ceiling is yet, right? And so I think that he's going to have an opportunity to show what it can be. And, as long as he doesn't go into training camp and just have a horrible camp and a horrible preseason, and that's the other thing I'm looking forward to. Normally we don't see anybody in preseason. We're going to see those two dudes in preseason because somebody's got to earn that job. We'll see Aidan O'Connell. We'll see Gardner Minshew. That'll make those preseason games that much more interesting. So, again, it's going to be, like I said, a true, healthy quarterback competition. I think it's going to be the only true quarterback competition in the league. I'm rocking with Aidan O'Connell. I think that he's going to get the job, but I understand if you think Gardner Minshew is going to get the job. There's multiple reasons why you could feel that way, including the $15 million fully guaranteed that they gave him. Some hit us up on our text line and our phone line on my radio show and was like, look, he didn't get $15 million guaranteed to sit on the bench and be a backup, right? Follow the money. The only thing about that is I normally would agree with that 100%. I just don't feel like AP is that guy. I feel like AP don't care how much money you make, when you were drafted, what the expectations are for you. He's going to go out there and put the guy out there that he feels like is the best guy for the job that's going to help them win games. And he's rocked with O'Connell since day one since he took over. So I also feel like he's got a relationship with him where he's going to lean in his direction. Just for S's and giggles, when you want to look at the other quarterbacks in the division, Mahomes, obviously the best quarterback in the league, 4,183 yards, 27 touchdowns, had 14 picks. He was a guy that, had a struggle offensively for the majority of the season. They still found a way to win the Super Bowl based off the defense and, of course, Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes when he needed to. He had a 67.2% completion percentage, and his career is about 66.5% completion percentage. And then there's Justin Herbert, who has high expectations, hasn't been to the playoffs and won a game yet, got to the playoffs but lost after being up 27-0 to the Jaguars. So, he's got high expectations. He's got a new head coach. Who knows what it's going to look like, that offense is going to look like. If it's anything like Michigan, it'll be a lot of the run game, but I'm sure he's going to let Justin Herbert throw the ball around the yard as well. 3,134 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. 65.1 was his completion percentage, and 66.6 is his career completion percentage. So, obviously, it's a tick up from both Minshew and O'Connell. O'Connell was 62. Minshew was 62% as well. And Herbert and Mahomes are just around 66% as far as their completion percentage. And Herbert only started in 13 games in 2023. But you get the point, right? And so these guys got to find a way to elevate their game, right? If the Raiders are going to compete and be a real deep threat in the division, which I think they can be, they're going to have to get better quarterback play. Obviously, it's a team game. They're going to lead by the defense. We know that. They're going to lean heavily on the run game, but there's a reason why Brock Bowers was brought in. There's a reason why, the offensive line is being addressed, because they do need to continue to try to score points, and they're going to need a lot of help from their quarterbacks, whoever that is. I think it'll be Aidan O'Connell, but it very well could be Gardner Minshew. Who do you think it's going to be? 707-654-4693. Let me know who you think is going to be the starting quarterback, who's going to win that training camp job, and why. The and why is what I'm always most interested about. Matter of fact, your calls and texts are coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I'll tell you about FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And right now, it is winning time in the NBA. It is winning time in the NHL, right? The playoffs are going on. The Stanley Cup playoffs are going on in the NHL. And, of course, the NBA is getting real interesting, right? The Timberwolves and Nuggets knotted up at 2. OKC and Dallas knotted up at 2 after OKC came back Monday night. The Boston Celtics, they're back doing what Boston kind of does. They're up 3-1, about to knock Cleveland out the club. But the playoffs are really interesting. Really exciting right now. It's going on. Of course, like I said, the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on in the NHL as well. Again, $150. You could bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. New customers are going to get that $150 in bonus bets with every winning $5 bet. All you got to do, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Up first is a call from Raider Adam in Reno. He's calling to talk about Tom Telesco's approach to the draft. Here he is, Raider Adam in Reno.
Hey, Q, this is Raider Adam in Reno. I want to talk about Tom Telesco's approach to the draft and the addition of having Brock Bowers on the team. I really appreciate Tom Telesco's approach to this draft. It seemed like he was very prepared and had multiple options just to attack the draft. Like, for example, I'm sure plan A was to go ahead and trade up for Jaden Daniels. That didn't work. I think plan B was to get Michael Penix. That did not work. So I think plan C was, let's just get offensive weapons that we can build around on the offensive side of the ball, and then also build depth and grab starters for the offensive line. So I love the Brock Bowers pick, and I love the JPJ pick. 2 great picks right there, 2 day one starters in my opinion. But just picking the best player available. And going to talk about Brock Bowers, I think it's huge for 2 reasons. One is the run game. I mean, you have Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, 7-man up front, with a guy like Zamir White. That is a huge north to south runner. I think you're going to wear on some dudes up front. I think we're going to get some good yardage on the ground. And 2 is the play action game. I mean, you want to talk about teams worrying about defending Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers on the outside, and then you have Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers getting free down the middle, either the vertical seams or trying to get open in the middle of the field. I mean, I'm sure that gives defensive coordinators nightmares. So I think I think we're pretty good with the quarterback situation for now with Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, whoever wins the starting job. But I think it's just a great approach to the draft. I'm really excited to see what this offense can be in this upcoming season. So that's all I got to say, Q. Keep on doing a great job, man. And go Raiders.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And, yeah, I believe that Telesco was very prepared for the draft, right? More importantly, the scenario that shook out where all 6 of those quarterbacks were taken in the top 12, I think he was really ready for it. I know a lot of people, especially nationally, was like, oh, the Raiders didn't know what to do. They got to their pick and were like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, well, he's a good player. Let's just take him. I don't believe at all that that was the approach. Even though that's the narrative that's out there, I don't believe at all that that was the approach. Again, Tom Telesco made it very clear the Raiders needed to score points. They didn't score enough touchdowns in 2023. And I don't think there's one Raider fan, I know not this guy sitting here, that looks at the Raiders in 2023 and says, yeah, they scored plenty of points. Yeah, they scored plenty of points once when they scored 63 against the Chargers that Thursday night game after not scoring a point against the Vikings on that Sunday. So 4 days later, they put up 63. So, yeah, I mean, that day they scored plenty of points. The rest of the season, no, it was a struggle to get to 20 points a lot of the time. So that's not going to get it done. Would they have liked to have gone and got their, franchise quarterback or a guy that they believe could be their franchise quarterback? Sure. But that situation didn't present itself. So no doubt they went about the draft. And I do believe, like you said, that he was very, as a matter of fact, with what he did, very deliberate with what he did. And I think the Raiders came away with some really good players. Now, again, it's only a small sample size what I saw from the rookies on Friday at rookie minicamp. They're going to have to obviously go out there and earn their job, and the Raiders are going to have to go out there and win games. But it feels like they came away with a pretty good class. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Jammin' J. Cruz. He said, what's up, Q? It's your boy Jammin' J. Cruz at the 707. Just wanted to drop my thoughts on the theme song and training camp. I get that you have to satisfy the powers that be, and you're all good. As regards to the old song, I think you should save it for Keys to Victories on Friday and or Victory Mondays. Also, with the whole no fans at Costa Mesa thing, bring it back to Napa. I remember going to training camp the year Jerry Rice came over, and they ran a trick play to Jerry, who threw a bomb to Tim Brown, and it's just one of those moments as a young fan I'll never forget. That right there goes to show why they should let fans at training camp. Anyway, thanks for everything you do. First listen every day, and Raiders just win, baby. That is from Jammin' J. Cruz. Thanks so much for the text. And, yeah, man, I'll tell you, I would love to see fans, wherever they have it, be able to just go in there and enjoy it. I mean, even when I'm at the training camp and it's in Henderson, it's like it's cool being there and seeing some of the fans and being able to talk to some people that, listen to the show. It's cool, but it's literally just a handful of fans because they just don't have the room to bring a whole bunch of people. And I would love to see it just be a huge crowd out there and people just get to go out there and check out the training camp and see their favorite team. Like, I don't care if it's Costa Mesa, I don't care if it's Napa, I don't care if it's the southern tip of Africa. Wherever they can have their training camp and have a ton of fans, that would be ideal. As far as the theme song, I plan on doing something, bringing it back maybe on Fridays or, like you said, Keys to Victory Friday, Victory Monday. Maybe it could be somewhat of a win or, I don't know, something. We'll come up with something, but it's not a huge. I've seen a lot of people making a huge deal about it. It's not really that big a deal, right? I mean, the theme song was cool. I liked it. It had a very good long run on the show, but believe me, the theme song didn't make the show, right? The Raiders make the show, right? Talking about the Raiders, having a conversation about the Raiders, having feedback on the Raiders, right? Doing what we do on the daily is what actually made the show. The theme song was dope. Don't get me wrong, but everything has its run. And so when the powers that be, as you mentioned, I mentioned as well, say that this is how we're going to do things more uniform with the rest of the network, everyone's got bosses. So I gotta respect that as well. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Jay in the 209. He's calling to touch on a couple subjects like the draft and also free agency as far as undrafted free agents go. Here he is, Jay in the 209.
What's up, Q? This is your boy Jay in the 209. Hey, man. I called you a couple weeks back before the draft. I was like, hey, what's going to happen if 6 quarterbacks go, before we pick? And I didn't actually call out Brock Bowers, but, that was kind of where I was going with this whole thing. It was like, we're going to get a really good athlete, and it's not going to be a bad thing. We can develop O'Connell, see what happens there. See what happens with the free agent. But You know, what I really want to talk about is this draft class, and the draft class itself. It has been talked about, but I want to talk about some of the free agents, specifically a couple guys that I think are going to maybe help this team. And, you know, we know that Antonio Pierce, he's a linebacker at heart. And I love this guy they got, man, from East Florida. I think he transferred to North Carolina. I was watching some tape on this guy, this Amari Gainer, man. Like, I feel like he's in the mold of a guy like Antonio Pierce, and he's going to be on his short-term watch list. And, you know, linebacker position, it's we only need to keep 3 or 4. That's the way it is nowadays. But, I mean, this guy, Gainer, man, he looks like a guy that can make the practice squad and then show up, you know, on the 53 if, you know, there's an injury, God forbid. But that's one guy that I really like that they signed. And so I'm gonna get your opinion on that. I'll leave it at that. I'll keep it short. All right, man. I appreciate you and love your show.
Jay, thanks for the call. Appreciate you, my man. And, yeah, you're talking about Amari Gainer from North Carolina. He's a guy a lot of people have talked about, right? He could be a real deal player. The one thing about it is, man, it doesn't matter how you get to the team. Undrafted free agent, high draft pick, free agent, whatever the case may be, once you put on that silver and black, once you put on that helmet, once you're inside that facility, you have an opportunity to be on the team, right? And Antonio Pierce, you know, look, the guy was an undrafted free agent. Right, I mean, he signed with Washington. He didn't get drafted, so he had to earn everything. So he's not going to look at any of the UDFAs and be like, yeah, you're just an undrafted free agent. You're not going to make the squad. So I know Gainer is a guy a lot of folks talk about. I'm a TJ Franklin guy, right, the edge out of Baylor. I know him from high school, so covered him while he was in high school at Temple High. So that's a guy that I'm definitely paying attention to. Tulu Griffin, the wide receiver, he's one that, especially with the new kickoff rules, I think that he's a guy that could be something. Jaquan Shepard, the cornerback out of Maryland, he's a guy. And how about Ron Stone, right? He's got Raider family ties with his pops, right? Ron Stone Sr. So, I mean, there's that. There's a lot of intriguing names on that list of undrafted free agents. Matter of fact, hold on, I got it right here. I mean, look, Carter Bradley, obviously that's the son of Gus Bradley. Coker, the tackle out of TCU, he could be somebody. Let's see, I already talked about Jaquan Shepard. Rashad Williams, the cornerback out of Texas Tech. There's a couple guys in here to really pay attention to that could easily pop. But, yeah, Gainer is a guy that a lot of folks have talked about. So, Jay, thanks so much for that call. Do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Rob in Houston. He says, hey, what's up with Unique Ngakoue? Any idea why he's a free agent? Could we use him as depth? Also, please bring back the autumn wind. Love the show, bro. That's Raider Rob in Houston. Never heard of a theme song getting so much play, but it is. I ain't mad at that. Raider Rob, thanks for the text. I appreciate you. Unique Ngakoue, I don't think he's in a hurry to sign right now. Like right now is kind of the time when players don't really worry about it. They kind of have an idea of the teams that are interested in them. You know, some will probably sign closer to training camp because there's really no, I mean, what do they need to sign for now? Just to go to mandatory minicamp? They'll sign after that. So, yeah, guys like, you know, Xavier Howard, you know, there's a couple other, Steven Nelson is out there and available, Unique Ngakoue. I have heard rumblings that there's a potential he could come back. That'd be cool. I always like Unique. I was happy when the Raiders signed him. I hated that he only played with the Raiders for 1 year. I did think that they were doing an upgrade when they got Chandler Jones. Clearly, I was wrong in that situation. Didn't know Chandler Jones was going to end up in the situation he was ending up in, and hopefully he's doing okay right now. I don't have any idea. I got to be honest with you. But I would love to see Unique Ngakoue come back, and I think he really helped Max mature. And Max will say that. Max, hey, Unique was his guy. So I'd love to see that happen again. You can never have too many guys getting after the quarterback, right? It's almost like the Justin Houston effect, right? How many times did Justin Houston sign a contract somewhere just to be able to rush the quarterback, just to pin his ears back on third down? Unique Ngakoue doesn't have to get, break the bank money. He doesn't have to be that guy who's a starter all the time, but some more depth along the defensive line, sure. I would have no problem with that at all. But thanks for that text. I do appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. Rick from the 831, he's calling to talk about the quarterback position and who he thinks could be the answer at that position for the Raiders. Here he is, Rick from the 831.
Hey, what's up to you, Rick from the 831, man? Hey, this is a response to a lot of Raider fans, out there. who got me to call in was that Trucker Ken guy with AOC. You know, I'm getting a lot of this stuff. You know, you can look at like message boards or just talking to Raider fans. It's like, don't sleep on Aidan. Don't sleep on Aidan. Well, you know what? I'm going to counter that. Don't sleep on Gardner. I mean, the guy's proven he can win games. The guy's proven he can lead a team. The guy's scrappy, man. The guy has proven he can start. I mean, is he a top level starter? No. But I guarantee most teams would not mind having him on the roster. And I'm just saying, don't sleep on Gardner. Everybody's kind of, I get the loyalty. That's what we do as Raider fans, right? We have this loyalty to our team. But I just think at the end of the day, man, you can't really sleep on Gardner. The guy can play a little bit. You know, he has some inconsistencies like any other player. But I think he's got a hell of an attitude. Might not have the strongest arm, but he makes it work. And he can move. He can get out of the pocket. He can scramble. He can pick up a first down, which is something that we have been missing, right? We knew Jimmy G, yeah, he had that first game with the Broncos that he did it. But we knew Jimmy G wasn't really going to do it because he was Glass, Jimmy Glass. And then, you know, Aidan, I hope he does it, but he just never really proved it in college. And he didn't prove it in his first year starting. Not knocking Aidan. I'm just saying, don't sleep on Gardner. We might have a guy that, he reminds me of Jeff Hostetler, like a scrappy quarterback who gets the job done. That's who he reminds me of. And, you know, if that's the best he is, I don't mind a younger Hostetler. I don't know, man. I'm just saying, this is just, it's going to be an interesting competition, man. And it's almost like everybody's kind of split. But you're hearing a lot of Aidan. Yeah, Aidan did great. Aidan has experience. Gardner has experience. He was thrown into the fire week one, first year as a starter, right? When I think Nick Foles went down with the Jaguars. Then he was like, hey, Foles got traded. You're now the starting quarterback. And he went down with an injury. Gardner, that is. I mean, Gardner has a ton of experience. He has the highs and the lows, and he still got that Raider attitude, man. I love it. Just saying, don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on the quarterback position. That's our new mantra. Don't sleep on the quarterback position. I think the Raiders quarterbacks will surprise you. Either one. Enjoy your show, Q, as always, my man. There's only one nation. That's the Raider Nation.
Big Rick, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm team don't sleep on either of the guys. And I don't think that anyone's really sleeping on these guys. I think everyone's pretty aware of what they can do. You know, some are higher on a Minshew like you than others. I think both guys are very capable of going out and winning games. And that's what I think the beauty is of signing Minshew, is that you know that he can go out there and what he can do. He can win games. He can lead the team. He can play the quarterback position and be comfortable with it. Aidan O'Connell showed last season at the end of the season he could do the same thing. So I think whoever wins the quarterback competition, and as I talked about in segment number 2, it's going to be a true competition, is going to have a chance to still win games. Now, of course, it's a tough division. They have a tough schedule. We'll find out exactly what it is, what it looks like in its entirety on Wednesday. So that's something to look forward to. Thursday show should be fun, right? So we got that to see. And, whoever's going to battle it out in camp and preseason, and may the best man win. But regardless, there was 2 quarterbacks that started in 2023, right, to have that kind of insurance. So even if Minshew wins it, you have a guy like O'Connell who's been there, done that, sitting right behind him, ready to go in case of emergency. And if O'Connell wins it, you have a guy like Minshew that's sitting there ready to go in case of emergency. So I think you're in a good situation. Could it be better? Sure. But I think you're in a good situation with either one of the quarterbacks. Rick, thanks for the call. I appreciate you. We'll close things out with a text from Silver and Black Hole. And I know the show went a little bit longer than it's supposed to. Ari, I apologize, but this is from Silver and Black Hole. He says, hey, what's up, Q? Silver and Black Hole here. I just wanted to reach out and say absolutely loving all the great content. I'm glad Raider Nation has someone with their finger on the pulse of what's really going on. With that said, I know it's very early and that you've been paying attention to the defense, but I wanted to see how Anthony Brown Jr. has been looking. I know he's got an uphill battle ahead of him, but he might be a hidden ace in our sleeve. Please let me know your thoughts. Just win, baby. That's Silver and Black Hole. And I'll be 100% honest, and you heard AP in segment number 2 saying that Anthony Brown is a guy that's doing some good things. I didn't really pay attention to him. I know there was some on Friday that were paying attention to him. I was looking more at the, at the guys that, the defense, like you mentioned, the rookies. Matter of fact, he wasn't out there on Friday. I'm sorry, he wasn't out there on Friday. But I know that people have been talking about him, what he's been doing, in their voluntary work. He's been doing a lot of that. So that's what people have been talking about. But, yeah, the only quarterback that was playing or practicing on Friday was Carter Bradley. So I'm sure his arm was sore after that. But, yeah, I've heard good things, but honestly, I haven't seen anything from him. So when I get a chance, I'll definitely, be out there and looking and seeing what he brings to the table. AP said he's been doing some good things, so that's all I can go with is what he had to say. So thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you, and that's going to do it for today's show. I know it went a little bit longer than it was supposed to. Again, that's what happens sometimes. I try not to do that, but it does happen. So we'll be back tomorrow. We'll have more calls and texts. We'll have more news and notes and plenty of conversation as well, and I'm sure we'll get plenty of feedback on who you think who's going to win the quarterback job for the Silver and Black coming out of training camp. Gardner Minshew or Aidan O'Connell? Aidan O'Connell or Gardner Minshew? All that'll come up on tomorrow's show here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.